This podcast is sponsored by Path to Publishing, helping authors to take control over their publishing journey for over 21 years. Visit pathtopublishing.com to get on the path to publishing your next book.
Welcome back to It's Truly Novel, the podcast where we talk about everything new on the internet. I'm your hostess, Brandy M. Miller, and this is part 2 of my interview with Amy Ferris of Story Summit. If you haven't watched part 1 yet, I encourage you to drop in and give it a listen. Thank you for joining me, and now, without further ado, let's get back to the interview.
See, you asked me at the very beginning about my book that I'm writing.
Mm-hmm.
It's called The Mess of Love, and it's all about turning my mistakes into my mission.
Yeah.
So that's what it's about. It's taking, and each piece is about something that I did, whether I was young or older, or and how I turned that, which was a negative, into my mission to inspire and encourage other women.
Yeah.
To use my life and say, okay, you know why I went through that? So that when that woman says, oh God, I can't, I'll say, you know what? I went there. I was there.
Yeah.
You know, we all need to know that A, we're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
And B, that imperfection is really cool.
Yes, it is. It's a beautiful thing. It is what makes us truly unique.
Imperfection and messy is really gorgeous.
Yeah.
You know, there's perfect is, you know, there is no such thing. And if we can use all of that messy and all of those mistakes and all of the things in our life that caused us pain, that caused us trauma, to understand another heart, then we've got it.
Yeah, exactly. Then we've triumphed. We've turned what was ultimately a tragedy into a triumph.
Absolutely. Right? And then we're no longer victims.
Exactly. We don't have to victim. You can be a victim in the beginning.
Yes.
You know, you didn't have a choice about what they did to you. And this is what I learned along the way. I have 0% control over what others do to me.
Exactly.
But I have 100% control over what I choose to do with what happened to me.
Yes. And that's the way we should all, and that's going from being a victim and really becoming a woman of unlimited self-esteem. It's becoming who we are.
Mm-hmm.
It's, you know, we're the lotus flower, you know, we're blooming out of the mud. And it's really important. And, you know, and that's a very important thing to tell other people.
Yeah.
You know, that what happened to them, yes, they have no control over how someone else is toward them, but they have 1000% control over the choices they make from that.
Yes. And I believe that to be true.
I do too.
I've experienced in my own life. I had a lot of trauma growing up. A lot of things happened to me that were ugly. And here's the other thing I will say to people who are hesitating to tell their own story, or who think it doesn't matter because they're not well known. Somewhere out there is this 23-year-old sitting at the kitchen table looking at a bottle of pills, wondering just how many of those they have to take to end all the pain, because they cannot see how the road ahead of them is going to change. They're at a bend in their life, and all they see is the pain and the misery and the suffering, and they can't see anything else. Your story can be the difference between them choosing to take those pills and ending it all too soon, or choosing to go on to achieve greater things. Because at 23, I was that girl sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the bottle of pills, wondering just how many I had to take. And what snapped me out of it, the scary part, is what snapped me out of it was that on the heels of the thought about taking my own life was that I didn't want to leave my 3-year-old son behind without somebody. And so I thought about taking him with me. And that was the thing that snapped me out of it, was, oh my God, I just thought about taking my son's life. How could I do something like that? And I said, no, this is not how this story is ending. I'm going to push forward until I achieve something that that makes it worthwhile, that he can have the better life, because I'm not going to leave him here in this mess. And so he became my reason for continuing on at that point in time. And I'm glad that I did, because so much of my life didn't even start unfolding until 6 years down the road.
Absolutely.
And
true.
I could never have imagined. And has my life been all uphill? No. I mean, it's been like one crisis point after another, but it's all been worth it. On the other side of every crisis point has been something greater. On the other side of losing everything has been gaining immeasurable value.
I am with you 1,000%. And listen, I was not 23, I was 14.
Well, I was 9 the first time but that wasn't pills. That was me considering slitting my wrist. So, but
I actually, when I was 14, I did take pills, and my parents ended up taking me to the hospital and getting my stomach pumped and the whole 9 yards. But I think that for anyone who's a teenager, for anyone who's a young woman or a young adult in the world, it's our stories matter.
Yes.
To their lives. And that's why we need to tell our stories. And we need to be messy, and we need to not make it pretty. We need to make it messy. We need to show the truth. We need to bleed, as you said an hour ago, on the page.
Yeah.
And that's what's so important, is if we can do that, other people are going to say, I can do that.
Yeah, it's that courage to be vulnerable and authentic that gives other people permission.
Yes.
To be vulnerable and authentic in return.
Absolutely.
And
Brandy, you don't need a degree to do that. And you don't need money in the bank to do that.
That's the remarkable thing.
Yeah, courage is in us.
Mm-hmm.
It's in us.
And I'm a Christian. And so there's always this temptation that you want to put out the varnished, pretty, polished piece, right? Because, I think in a sense, we have a tendency to assume that if a Christian has trouble or isn't following things correctly, that there's something wrong with them, rather than an understanding that the church is not a shrine for saints. It is a hospital for sinners, and we are all going in this journey together. We are all struggling, because sin is a failure to love. At its bottom core, it is a failure to love either yourself or the God who is love, or your neighbor. That's what you failed at. So there's no shame in sinning, as long as you can recognize the sin and correct it.
Absolutely.
There's no shame in failing, as long as you recognize that you failed and you do something to fix it. And maybe it takes you 100 times, because we all have habits, right? We've all developed habits of not loving, habits of selfishness, habits of things, and we're constantly under attack by life, right? So people hurt us all the time, and the natural reaction to hurt is either to hurt back, or to build a wall around our hearts, like we talked about earlier, or to put the pain in a backpack and wear it around like some kind of badge of honor, which it's not. All it does is weigh us down, right? And any of those three reactions, though, are unhealthy.
Right.
Of course, the other reaction is to chuck the rock back in the direction it came from, and you usually end up hitting somebody innocent instead, because the person who was there has moved on. That's
very true. That is very, very true.
So the best solution is to do what writers do, which was we take all that garbage, that those rocks that were thrown at us, and we put them on the ground, and we use a sledgehammer to crack them open. We find the gem, and we pluck it out, and we share it with everybody else.
Absolutely. We find a diamond.
Mm-hmm. Well, sometimes it's a diamond, sometimes it's a ruby, sometimes it's just,
it's just a rock.
Yeah.
That rock.
Or a geode. They're not they're not special, but they're beautiful on the inside. So I think that people should tell their story. And if they can connect with people like you who can help them, that'll make it all the better. And the more people they share their story with, the more benefits they get, the more people will be healed and helped. I truly believe that if we want to build peace in our world, it's going to come through stories. Because only in stories do you get to meet the real human being behind all of that behavior that was so ugly. And you get to understand why they did what they did. And you get to understand what the thought process was. And maybe you get to see a little bit of yourself in that person enough that you say, I can love that person. Even though they made mistakes, even though they did stupid stuff, even though, it was bad choices, right?
Yes.
I see the humanity.
That's it. The humanity.
Mm-hmm. And, it can bridge gaps nothing else can.
And I think that that's the key, the humanity, finding the humanity.
Mm-hmm.
And when we write our stories, when we tell our stories, when we are brave enough to bleed on the page, mm-hmm. what we're doing is we're also opening other hearts.
Yeah.
That's exactly,
we're giving them permission to hurt.
Yes. We're
telling them it's okay.
Yeah. And we're giving them permission to step away from their past so that they can really find that gem in themselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. And I think that one of the things that people underestimate is the value of going back into your story as an adult, going back into those childhood stories, because I know when I was doing it for myself, like I didn't realize how much 4-year-old me was steering my life. Like 4-year-old me was in the driver's seat a lot. And I don't know if you've ever put a 4-year-old in a driver's seat and let them drive your car, but good things do not happen.
No, good things don't happen when a 4-year-old is behind the wheel. No. And it usually has to do with other cars and ice cream trucks.
Well, and even themselves, it's not good things, right? Good things do not come. This is the reason we do not give driver's licenses to 4-year-olds. If you've ever seen the YouTube videos of kids that have been given those mini cars,
yeah,
they run over each other, right? They're just so intent on going where they're going, just plow right over each other.
Oh, it's so true. It's so true.
So there's a reason we don't give a license to a 4-year-old. But in a sense, if you don't go back into that trauma and deal with it, you will subconsciously allow that 4-year-old to be making decisions for you that would never be made by the adult version of you.
That's very true. That is unbelievably true.
I realized my father and mother divorced right about the time that I was 4 years old. And when I was 4.5, he decided to go back home to Mississippi. And I wouldn't see him again until I was 24. Wow. And the 4-year-old child who loved her father so much wrote this little short story that said, I am not lovable as a result of that, because in her own mind, if the man who said, I love you more than anything else in the world could just walk away and leave and not come back, how lovable could I honestly be?
That's very, very true.
There must have been something wrong with me. And when you couple it with a mother who is never happy with herself, let alone with anybody else, then what you get is a child who can't see anything good in herself, no matter what she does.
And that is absolutely 100% true. Yes.
And so
that's the foundation that you're looking at, that you're standing on when you're 4.5 years old.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And so that 4.5-year-old that believes she's not lovable, that believes that if she lets anybody get close to her, they're going to figure out that she's not lovable and they're going to leave her just like that, starts pushing people away subconsciously.
Absolutely.
It's not an active, intentional thing. It's just I won't let you get too close.
And fear. It has a lot to do with fear. It has a lot to do with that they're going to leave me anyway.
Yeah. So you detach yourself really quickly. If you do form attachments, you don't form them too tight because eventually they're going to leave. So why bother to attach, right? And so the minute that you get a hint that something's going wrong or something's going sideways, you don't confront it. You run from it because you're like, well, they're going to leave me anyway. This is just the beginning. I don't want to get hurt too much. So I'll just leave. I'll just walk away.
Right.
It's easier.
Yeah. And it's, and you've got fear, you've got trust, you've got all of it wrapped into it. Mm-hmm. It's profound. And that 4.5-year-old little girl, was left. Mm-hmm. She was abandoned. She was left.
Yeah. And it wasn't until I took a 40-year-old woman that I had become and walked back into that story with that 4-year-old little girl to retrieve her and said, oh, okay, sweetie, no, this is not the story that you think it is.
Yeah.
This is not the story of a daddy who walked away because you weren't lovable. Your dad had paranoid schizophrenia, so he wasn't right in the head. And your mother felt he was a danger to you, which quite possibly he was, especially when he wasn't on his medication. And so the two of them both felt you were better off without him in your life. And both of them were acting to try and protect you, not to hurt you.
Right.
Okay. So it's really a story about a little girl who was so lovable. Both of them were willing to sacrifice whatever it took in order to make sure you were okay.
Yeah.
Did they handle it the best way? Probably not. But they were doing the best they could under the circumstances.
And that's the thing. That is the thing, that they were doing the best they could.
The best they knew how.
And Brandy, at the end of my mother's life, so I had this incredibly tumultuous relationship with my mother. I adored my father. But my mother was not a nurturer. She didn't know how. My mother was that person. If I did something she didn't like, she would say, I don't love you. I don't love you. I'm going to return you to the people who brought you here. She said really nasty, cruel things that you don't say to a 4-year-old or a 5-year-old or an 8-year-old. At the end of my mother's life, and she was in assisted living and she had dementia, and I went to visit her and was there for about 10 days. And she had a moment of such clarity. It was profound. And she said, I wanted everyone to love me. I didn't want anyone to love you. And I was 60 years old at that point, or 58 years old, right? And that became it was like everything was illuminated in that moment. I understood everything. She didn't want anyone to love me. She wanted everyone to love her. And in that moment, I have an extraordinary husband, and I have great friends, and I had, and I have a great life. So I didn't need her to love me the way that 4 or 5 or 6-year-old Amy needed her to love her. But it was in that moment of clarity, that I understood her and the pain she must have gone through. To not want people to love your child.
Because you're afraid it will eclipse their ability to love you.
Because you're afraid that if they love your child, they won't love you. She didn't know how to share. She didn't know how, and I understood that was the reason my brother and I never had a relationship. She couldn't love us both.
Right.
So she loved one, and then she pitted us against each other, and then she loved the other. So it's all of that we learn.
Yeah.
And use. And that's when we let go of the baggage. That's when I'm not carrying this any longer. Yeah. I don't need it. I don't need the rocks.
I know a lot of people think forgiveness is for the other person, but it has nothing to do with the other person, because forgiveness and absolution are not the same thing. Like saying I forgive you does not mean what you did was okay. It means that I refuse to carry the baggage. You tried to shove your pain into my life, and you wanted me to carry it for you. And hey, buddy, I'm not doing that.
Exactly.
I refuse to carry that baggage with me because it doesn't belong to me. Take back your baggage.
It doesn't belong to you. It's all the shame and guilt and pain that I carried. That wasn't mine.
Yeah. The feeling that I was supposed to please that I was supposed to make somebody else happy. Well, that was baggage that didn't belong to me.
Yeah, that baggage was not ours to carry.
Yeah, exactly. And so once you recognize that, and you can kind of pity the person behind the behavior and say, wow, I recognize that you were too broken to recognize broken vessels hold no love.
That's true.
Just like broken vases hold no water, broken vessels hold no love. Doesn't matter how much you pour into them. They just can't hold it.
And it will pour out. And
yeah, exactly.
And it doesn't matter how much you try to glue them or try to fix them.
No, human beings are not capable of gluing what needs to go back together. When we try, what happens is that we get cut and we bleed. And we end up torn up. So no human being should be putting it on themselves to try and fix those broken vessels. That's a job for somebody far greater than us. And
that isn't our job.
Yeah.
It's not our job, period. It's just not our job.
Exactly. Well, but we often take it on ourselves. Like we feel responsible for fixing what's broken around us. I know that I used to take tremendous responsibility for fixing other people. And
I have to say that I think that that's something that a lot of women identify with. Yeah. It's how we were brought up. It's who we are.
I think it's sometimes the reason we get into these mixed up relationships. I tell people these days, look, honey, if you look at him and you could say, I can fix that, that is not a romance. That is a weekend project. That is a fixer-upper. That is a rehab. And trust me, you don't want to go there because you can't.
I love that.
That is not a romance. That is a project.
That's a weekend project. That
is a years-long project.
That should be a t-shirt. That is not a romance. That is a weekend project.
Exactly. Do not marry a fixer-upper. You will not end up with happy results. Okay. He will always, because it's not fair to him. If he's a constant project, he's not being loved.
Well, that's true.
He'll never be loved because he'll never be good enough because you'll never be done fixing it. You'll always be finding things to fix. So don't marry a fixer-upper. That's just not fair to you, and it's not fair to him.
Not only shouldn't you marry a fixer-upper,
I wouldn't recommend you date one either.
You shouldn't rent one.
Well, no, I do write about fixer-uppers, but I make it clear that this is a project that if the woman has taken on this project, it is way too much for her to handle.
It is. It is.
She is setting herself up and him for failure.
And failure, and to not be loved or to not feel ever wanted.
Yeah. And it's a disservice to them both. It's cruel, actually. And it creates this unhealthy relationship that's toxic to both. He can never be good enough to meet her expectations, and she can never be satisfied with what he is.
I was going to just say that, and you'll never be happy. You'll think, I didn't succeed. I wasn't good enough.
Exactly. It reinforces that I'm not good enough, which is why you get into it. It's like, if I can just fix him, this will prove how good I am.
Right.
But you're not that good.
and you can't. It is. You're right. It's a weekend project.
Well, I said weekend project, but that's a misspeak because this is like a lifetime project. Okay. This is the kind of thing that you don't ever really get done with.
No, I know, but I love that when you said this isn't a romance. This is a weekend project. It's true. And that's a brilliant thing to say. And
I think so many romance novels paint it as, well, love will fix this. And that is true. Divine love will fix that. But you are not in possession of divine love. You are in possession of human love, and human love has limitations. So step out of the way, sister, because that is not your job. Stay in your own lane.
Don't merge.
Exactly.
Don't merge. Soft shoulder, don't merge.
Exactly. Like I said, it's not fair to him. You're not really loving
not fair
him.
To anybody. It's like there's no fairness on either side.
Mm-hmm. Really exactly. It's not fair to you. You're only going to end up disappointed and hurt.
And depleted.
Absolutely. Totally. And you'll be blaming him for for failing to clean up the way you wanted him to. And the reality was, until he recognizes his need for cleanup on aisle 10, right? He's not going to be fixed. He has to recognize.
And, and there is going to be a woman out there, by the way, or someone out there that's going to see him differently.
Yes.
It's not, how we view somebody may not be how someone else views them.
Well, I mean, if the guy's drinking his way through every dinner, obviously he has a problem, right? And but I've met a lot of women who will look at the guy who's drinking his way through every dinner going, I can fix that. Sweetheart, no, you can't. There's a reason he's drinking his way through every dinner. He doesn't like himself. He's running from himself. He's trying to hide from the pain and the past that he carries. You cannot fix that much broken. You can't. There's not a hammer and nail set big enough, okay? So if you see that, if you see the guy who's constantly sabotaging himself, you think, I can fix that. No, you can't.
Yeah. And something, you can't fix women like that. You can't fix friends like that.
No, you can't.
We just, we can't fix people. We shouldn't even, that's not our business.
Exactly. It's not our job.
It's not our business to fix anybody. Either we accept them and we love them, or they're not the right people to be in our lives.
Right. And I have a litmus test for whether or not I really need to make a friend with this person or not. If the first thought that crossed my mind is I can fix that, boom, no, I need to stay away from that. That is not going to end up in a healthy relationship, because my automatic go-to there, that's my pride talking. That's my vanity talking.
That's ego for sure.
Mm-hmm. That is my pride. I am making them a project. That is not a real good relationship right there. From the get-go. It doesn't matter what they're bringing to it. It's me. I need to fix me. And so, yeah, I'm going back to that whole people are mirrors, right? If you look at somebody else and you're like, oh, that needs fixing, I can handle that. What you're really doing is avoiding fixing you. Because it's a lot easier to focus on what somebody else's problems are and issues are, and start swinging the hammer and the nails and the spackle in their direction than it is to look at what's broken in you and start working on that.
And we started the whole entire conversation with mirrors. See that?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, it's 90 minutes. Wow.
I know. It's an incredible conversation. I just can't.
Wow.
I'm just so amazed. And I really want to thank you for your time, Amy. I truly appreciate you being here with me and being on this podcast and sharing your wisdom and your experiences with our guests, and your willingness to be authentic and vulnerable in places where people usually aren't. They're so afraid of what somebody else is going to see and hear that they're like, oh my gosh, what are they going to say when they know about this part of me? And the more I admit to what parts of me there are, the more I'm hearing for other women. Yeah, my mom too. It's like, you're not alone, sister. If you think that you're alone, you're not alone.
Sister, you are not alone.
Trust me.
There's an army behind us.
I always say that the biggest clue to how dysfunctional a family really was behind closed doors is how put together they look in public.
Yes.
The more dysfunctional they are, the more strict the attention to every finite detail. Every hair has to be in place. There can't be any wrinkles. There can't be no humanity can be shown once you step outside those front doors.
It's funny that you say that, because it's really funny. There's somebody that I know, and we're not friends, but every time I see her, she's wearing linen and it's starched. And I think, oh my God, this is a woman who underneath that starched linen is a really scared, unhappy woman. She never sits. It's kind of like, God forbid, it's like, it's weird. And that you just said that. I never really thought that intensely about it, but it's true.
Yeah, it's true. It's the bellwether sign for a dysfunctional family. It's how much they focus on perfection
And how much they focus on
appearance.
Appearance.
My
Yes.
grandmother would spend 2.5 hours in the bathroom putting her face on before she would step outside the bathroom to be seen by another human being in her own home.
And my grandmother never wore makeup.
I would get along with your grandmother. I rarely wear makeup.
My grandmother told me to wash my face with cold water. Never hot water. Wash your face with cold water and cold cream. She said, don't buy anything fancy. She was gorgeous. She was 96 when she died. She never wore makeup. She never wore makeup. She told me what kind of shampoo to use and she always rinse your face with cold water. She was gorgeous. I don't remember her ever wearing a stitch of makeup.
Well, we kind of take for granted that women should wear makeup, but we have to realize that makeup was not a common thing up until, I want to say, the 50s, really.
Well, but my grandmother lived into the 70s.
But she was raised in a different era.
Absolutely.
When it was not commonly, in fact, the only people who did wear it were harlots. There was a lot about that, right? Because most of the nation was Christian at that time, and Scripture says that let your virtue be your decoration, your ornament. Adorn yourself with the virtues instead of focusing about all these, exteriors. And we've kind of gotten sideways from that. But I think there's a lot to be said about that, about letting the virtue within you be the thing that makes you beautiful.
Oh, I absolutely believe that. I do. And I'm a practicing Buddhist. So you see, here we are, two different, but it's, the light in you, the power that you have inside you, awakening to your greatness and your beauty.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, women especially, are born beautiful. We are born to be beautiful because beauty calls people to hope.
Beauty calls people to hope.
That's the purpose of beauty. It reminds people that there is something better than what we're looking at right now. Like, that's why we go outside in nature, we find beauty and we feel hope restored. We walk into an art gallery, we see beautiful things and we feel hope restored. I'm not saying all art is beautiful, because sometimes art also serves the purpose of reminding us of beauty lost, of reminding us of what happens when we choose to turn down a darker path, of reminding us that life will end. So sometimes it focuses on other things, but a beautiful work of art will make you stop.
Oh, it's phenomenal.
Yeah.
A beautiful, looking at art, standing in a gallery or a museum, standing in front of a painting that is just breathtaking.
Yeah.
What it does is it just stirs up hope.
Yeah, exactly. It uplifts your spirit. It restores your hopes.
There's something about it. There's something about that.
Causes you to focus on something that is good, something that is worthy.
That's the power of art. That's the power of writing. That's the power of art. That's the power of watching a magnificent movie. That's the power of, what stimulates us, what opens when you said bleed on the page, there is something truly magical, right? When you're in a museum and you're walking through and you're looking at the masters, or you're looking at, I'm not, when I stand in front of like a painting that's all blue and it's like and I'm thinking, okay, like what am I feeling here?
Blue.
And I don't understand that art. I mean, and I actually like some modern art. I love some modern, I do. It's like, but there's something about standing in front of a painting that is so precise, that you feel like, how did that person make that painting? How did they paint it? How did they get those little blue eyes? You know, there is a miracle to standing in front of art.
Yes.
And the feeling of this is magic. And
Yeah.
it fills you with a hope. It fills you with, it stimulates you. It gets your senses going.
Yeah.
And that's how I feel when I'm reading a great book. That's anything that takes us and opens our life. Anything that opens our heart, anything that makes us breathe, anything that gives us the opportunity to feel is, you know, there's beauty in that.
Yeah, absolutely.
And you know, I wish everyone to feel that.
Yeah, I think
that kind of, that joy, that hope, that beauty, you know, to be able to let something lift you out of.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that is the power of writing. It's one of the reasons why I loved books so much when I was growing up. It's because it was the only way I could get out of the world in which I was living.
Absolutely.
So I could step into a book and I didn't have to be in the world that I wasn't happy with. I could enter this other person's world. And of course, I also had the control of, if I didn't like this world, I could shut the cover.
Yes, you didn't have to finish it. If you didn't like
Right.
it.
Now I was compulsive about finishing it, you know, but I could still pick and choose the worlds I entered into. I didn't have to enter into a world I didn't want to be in.
Exactly. But it was your choice.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a very, right in there is the power. It was your choice.
Yeah.
Someone didn't tell you you could or couldn't. You made a decision on your own.
Yeah, there was agency in it.
There is agency in that. Absolutely. And the other thing too is, you know, when you're reading someone's book, you're also reading it from a different place. You're, you know, getting lost in a book, getting lost in words, like how one sentence can like shift everything, you know. And when I was a little girl, books took me everywhere. That was what my saving grace was, you know, hiding under a blanket and reading.
Yeah. And it
feeling
was
like I want to be this little girl right now. I want to be in that place right now. I want to be there now. And you do, because our imagination is so profound.
It is such a powerful thing.
It's incredibly powerful. Our minds, our imagination.
Yeah.
What we can conjure up.
Yeah.
Good,
it
bad,
is
different.
Yeah. Well, and the other part of it is that it broadens our perspective to be able to take on somebody else's life story and see things through their eyes, that beyond our own experiences. I think that is the other power of reading somebody else's story. And the reason why more people should write is that we often get stuck in our own narrow perspective. And we don't see how somebody else could see it a different way. Well, in the process of, and it's one of the reasons why I believe fiction is a key to developing emotional intelligence, because in fiction, unlike in nonfiction, you are literally walking in somebody else's world. You have a complete suspension of disbelief. Whereas with nonfiction, even a memoir, you know, with nonfiction, you're being taught something and you know it ahead of time, so your guard's kind of up. A good memoir will pull you in the same way fiction does, and you will walk in their shoes.
Oh, absolutely. That's very true. That is very, very true. You know, a really good memoir is one that you actually question, boy, this sounds like it couldn't have happened. You know, there's that, right? There's that line there.
I used to joke that I would write a soap opera about my family's history, but nobody would believe that much crap happened to one family. It's like, yeah, no.
You mean really, like no one would believe you're Erica Kane? Come on.
I mean, you know, given the level of stuff, like my dad's side of the family, for instance, 3 generations of first cousins get married, 3 generations of paranoid schizophrenics. You know, it's like, Really, people? Family reunion, not the best place to pick up dates. Just making a suggestion here. Just gonna say
that actually is a good commercial for not marrying into your family.
Yeah, exactly. Just not the best plan ever. And my mom and my dad met in a psych ward. She was the secretary, he was a patient. She knew what he had. I don't know. Remember, if you look at the guy and you think I can fix that, it's not a romance. It's a weekend project. And so I'm like, Mom, who does this? Who goes to the psych ward and says, yeah, let me check that one out. What did you think was going to come out of that?
I think that's called a police lineup, by the way.
It should have been.
When you're sitting there and you're going, number 3.
Yeah.
And it's not because he is a criminal, but it's because you want to marry him. Number 3.
Yeah. Why, Mom? Why? I joked that both of my parents were crazy, but only one of them had the certification to prove it. So, it's like, only one of them was aware of this fact, but both of them were. But yeah, so I mean,
that is wonderful.
But the amazing thing is that even out of all that craziness and all that insanity of life, beautiful things still come.
Look at you. All you need to do is look in a mirror.
Yeah, beautiful things still come.
Yes.
And so I applaud those who are in your story summit, and I encourage those who haven't yet, who know that they need to write their story, but haven't yet found the courage to step up and go do it. To go visit Story Summit, right?
Storysummit.us.
Yeah, and go visit. Invest in yourself. Take the free classes if you need to, but invest in yourself. Yes, believe in yourself enough to invest in you. If you want to know, the best place to put your money is not stocks, bonds, and real estate. You are your best investment. You are your best investment, because you will always grow and you can always pull more out of you, pull more value. Your life will continue to happen to you. Problems will continue to happen, and you will continue to find solutions to those problems, which add to your value. You increase exponentially over time in value. So invest in yourself.
We have a lot of dividends.
Yes, if we will tap into them. Now, the thing is that we may need help seeing that value, and I say that
help seeing, and that's what it is too. Is it's so important to find those people that see your beauty, that see your potential, that know there's possibility. It's so important to foster those relationships.
It is.
Because, and if you have someone in your life that says to you, oh my God, you can do anything, believe them.
Yeah.
Do not believe the people who tell you you're not good enough, you don't have what it takes, you'll never make it, why are you doing that? Don't believe those people. They're unhappy. They don't go there.
They're projecting their own insecurities onto you.
Believe the people who tell you you can do it.
Yeah.
Believe those people.
Yeah. Because we all have greatness that is within us. Like I said, we're all destined to become stars. All of us.
Are your scars like stardust?
Yeah, exactly. And what happened to you happened for you to transform you into the person you needed to be to take your place in the heavens. And that's all. That is all.
Brandy, this has been such an amazing 2 hours.
I know, I'm crazy. And I'm keeping you, and I'm sorry for that. But no. I'm not sorry, because I love the conversation. Well,
I'll come back anytime.
Oh, awesome. That would be great. We'll have to update when you get your book out.
Yes, absolutely.
You'll have to, come on here and tell me, because I proudly advertise that I am a hot mess. I have no hesitation to tell anybody that I am a hot mess.
A hot mess. Oh my God, am I a hot mess?
Yeah,
messy is beautiful.
Messy is the sign of creativity in action.
Yes.
You don't walk into a creative person's home and find it neat and tidy. No, that doesn't happen.
No, that's interesting.
Because
I'm a very creative human being.
because creativity goes everywhere. Like you have stacks of books everywhere. You have stacks of papers everywhere. You have the whole house is taken up with something involving creativity. That's how it goes. But
hey, absolutely, that is how it goes. Messy is really beauty. It's so beautiful.
Yeah. Life doesn't
create a hot mess.
Life gets created with mess. Life gets birthed in mess. Life goes on in mess, and growth takes place in mess. That's the only place it takes place.
Yes, it does.
People often hate that they are going through stuff, and I tell people if life is shoveling manure in your direction faster than you feel you can process it, just remember that the farmer shovels fertilizer, which, by the way, is mostly made of manure, on the plants he wants to grow the most, right? And it takes 6 things to grow a plant to healthy, and 5 of those things are pretty messy. They're the bacteria, they're the soil, they're the manure, and the I'll get mine in a moment. And it's the earthworms that irrigate the land, so that keeps it light and fluffy so that the plant can grow, and the bacteria that breaks down the manure into nutrients that the plant can absorb, and it's the soil that allows the plant to stick their roots in deep and grow big. And without those 4 things, the other 2 don't matter. The sun and the rain, the sun and the water only matter if the other 4 are present. The plant still won't grow healthy if they don't have the other 4.
See, and it's so simple because it's the same thing. It's like no mud, no lotus, right? Mm-hmm. A lotus flower cannot bloom or grow without the mud. Mm-hmm. So, look at the beauty that comes out.
Mm-hmm. We don't like the suffering. We don't like the pain. We don't like it. But, most of the things that come in life come out of those. Most of the beautiful things come out of those.
It's true.
And so anyway, I could go on and on for another hour probably, because I'm pretty good at talking. That's what they pay me to do.
Well, you're a gem, and I'm really thank you for inviting me. Thank you for inviting me.
It's truly my pleasure to have you. And thank you guys for tuning in and watching. I appreciate being able to introduce Amy to you and her perspectives and Story Summit. I do want you to check it out. If you haven't already, I'll be sure to put comments, put it in the description where you can find the link. And we will be talking to you soon, and we'll catch up with Amy in a few months and find out where maybe we'll get to catch up with her in Kauai.
Wouldn't that be great?
Oh, that would be lovely.
Kauai. Come to Kauai.
Yes. I of course I had to butcher that. Kauai.
No, I thought you said Hawaii.
No, I didn't.
Well, Kauai.
Yeah, exactly.
Kauai. Please come to Kauai.
Yeah, yes. That would be awesome. Maybe we'll do a podcast there.
Oh my God, that would be incredible. And you can find Kauai on Story Summit.
Yes.
So you can find all of that there.
All right. Well, I am going to let you go. It has truly been a pleasure.
Oh, what a joy. Thank you
so much for joining me, and you have a fabulous day.